Hi everyone, my name is Taaye. I'm an artist from Hong Kong currently living in Vancouver. I do both figurative and abstract watercolor painting. Previously, before living in Canada, I've also lived in several other countries like United States, Japan, and Italy. I think like many third culture kids, I've also experienced dislocation and lack of belongings while living in several other countries. However, when I trace back to the beginning of my feeling of dislocation, it was quite evident to me that the feeling was very strong even when I was living in Hong Kong, which is where I'm from. I was constantly feeling very alone, very alienated, but I have an innate sense wanting to be survive, want, but I have an innate sense wanting to survive and wanting people to like me. So I had to nonstop to adapt, to change, and then adapt again to the next environment. So what I learned from the process is that so it's kind of like swimming against the current. And what I learned from the process is that the concept of dislocation or the feeling of dislocation will never go away. But how do you find peace within the sense of dislocation or within your environment is the key. So this is a very strong. This is an ongoing theme that I've been always trying to address within my work. Obviously, with me being Asian, my Asian upbringing also has a lot of impact on how I see things. For example, in Chinese belief, we always talk about how life is this fleeting concept. Things are always going to pass. Things are going to perish one day, and um, that concept has a very strong impact on me, and it's an ongoing concept that I'm always trying to address in my work. In many pieces, you will find this white bird called a cockatoo. So what a cockatoo is, it's a white type of parrot, majorly from Indonesia and Australia. So this particular parrot that I'm actually referencing is from the wild cockatoos population from my childhood memory in Hong Kong. So there's an interesting background story to these wild cockatoos in Hong Kong. They actually originally from Indonesia, this particular type of cockatoo, which is called the yellow-crested cockatoo. And they were brought over by the British when British was, colonizing Hong Kong. So in a way, they were not supposed to exist in Hong Kong. They were also misfit in this very urban environment, which is very similar to how I feel sometimes and wherever I am in. And the other thing about having a parrot in my artwork is because ever since moving out of Hong Kong, I've moved in different countries. I've lived in different countries and places. Um, there's a lot of change in my life. But one thing that has always been very consistent in my life is I've always had a parrot next to me, besides me. So that is the reason why I always depict a cockatoo, which is in representation of that consistent energy within my life. Who are your biggest influences? My biggest influences is probably Nihonga. Nihonga translated into Japanese mineral painting. So it's not the typical semi ink paint that we're all thinking about. This types of painting, the application of these kind of painting is more closer to oil paint. So artists like Mikiko Noji, Tomoharu Okamura, etc., etc. I just love how gentle and delicate Nihonga is, and I love the light and the colors within this type of painting. In terms of watercolor painter, this New York painter called Graham Deems also had a really huge impact on me. And obviously, being Chinese, I also looked up to Chinese painter like Wu Guanzong or Zhang Daqian. Um, yeah, so there are also several printmakers on Instagram that is constantly giving me a lot of inspirations. So I say those are majorly my influences right now. What are you focusing on right now? I am focusing on right now on further developing my conceptual and technical skills. As you might know, watercolor is a very uncontrollable medium. What I find is that you often have to make peace with whatever the medium wants to be that day. There's a certain amount of effort that you can put in to influence the results, but at the end of the day, it's much more about letting go and accepting the results, which I'm still learning to do. And in another way, it's about enjoying the process. In another way, it's about enjoying the process. I always say to everyone that with watercolor, I'm only doing half the work. The other half of the work is done by watercolor, the medium itself. I think the biggest challenge of being an artist, I mean, obviously there are things like finance, marketing yourself, navigating relationship with other artists, galleries, etc., etc., etc. But the thing I really find most difficult to me myself is admitting to myself that I want the life of an artist. I think it's very easy to say that I'm an artist, but to admit that I want a life being an artist is another level. Well, number one, being an artist is very, very lonely. It's a very lonely journey. You can get feedback from everyone, you can get mentorship, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision for yourself. You have to decide what is good, what is not good for you as an artist. There's really no map or guideline, or there's no directions or one way of saying like, oh, this is how you do it, 1, 2, 3. And you have to have very strong drive or motivations, internal motivations to keep going. You will struggle with lots of internal struggles and doubting yourself. Oh, am I good enough? Am I good enough? But at the end of the day, it's not about listening, giving in to those kind of voices. It's more about how to pick yourself up after going through a tough battle of internal struggle. And what I find myself the most challenging to myself is gathering up enough courage to say I want this life to myself. It was quite a journey to overcome. And the second biggest challenge, as I mentioned before, is knowing when is enough and when to let it go. Again, like with watercolor, it's a very uncontrollable medium, so you have to kind of have a conversation with the medium and say, okay, is that enough? Should I keep pushing? When is enough? And again, like going back to the concept of putting in the effort and not expecting much of the result and just enjoy the journey or the process. I say to my younger self is accept your strength and grow from there. There was a period of me trying to deny what I'm really good at and try to go against everything else and try to really grow myself from what I'm not good at. And what I learned is that it's much easier to grow yourself from whatever you're already good at than trying to do the same with whatever you're not very good at. Another thing I want to say to my younger self is that the world has so many opportunities, and you don't always have to confine yourself to a certain mold. You can find your own little niche, and when you find your place, the world will unfold itself to you. It sounds very much like a miracle, but it really is how I feel ever since I started back in this art journey. Conventional medium and techniques. So as I mentioned before, my style is deeply influenced by the style of Nihonga, which is Japanese mineral painting. So someday I would really love to learn Nihonga. In terms of conventional material, I remember during my foundational year at college, there was a course that we need to take called 2D design. One of the assignments were to create a larger image that is made up of smaller items that you collected. But the smaller items that you collected have to contradict to the larger image that you're composing. So what I did was I went to the school clinic and asked for 30-ish condoms, washed them all in the dormitory bathrooms, and made an image of a fetus out of 30-ish condoms. So after that, after washing all the condoms, I threw away the packages in the trash can within the bathrooms, I put a bunch of toilet paper on top of it, thinking that I did a really good job burying those packages. So little did I know that. My resident assistant, which is like, the guy that take care of us in the dormitory, would share the same bathroom with us. He somehow knocked over the trash can, found the 30-ish condom packages, and had a huge panic attack. It was quite a funny story. My friend walked over and had to explain that, it was actually just an assignment. It was not someone having a crazy party within the dormitory. So that was my, probably, I could call that as my rebellious years with art making. But nowadays I just do watercolor. I prefer to listen to music when I'm doing my artwork. It would go somewhere between rock, soul, electric, jazz, Mandarin, or Cantonese pop, etc., etc., etc. Depends on the mood of the day. But apparently, according to Spotify, I really like old stuff. You know how Spotify does this thing at the end of the year where they do a summary of all the music you listen to most during that year. So my summary last year basically told me that I am an old lady inside, that I like old stuff. So I have to say I felt very, very extremely blessed by the kindness I've had ever since I started this art journey. I've never felt so accepted before as a person just as I am. In terms of the best reactions, I think it was when I realized how much people accept my cockatoo and my cockatoo in my artwork. Initially, I totally thought that people would find birds to be harder to accept. I thought like people would like dogs or cats, or I just thought like, oh, nobody would really like a cockatoo. I don't know why I thought that, but I was really grateful when people were willing to look beyond the appearance of a bird and really look at cockatoo in terms of the context of my artwork. So that is some of the I felt really relieved by it, by that, and very thank you for. Just want to say thank you to everyone. Question number 9. What do you hope people take away from your artwork? Well, that's a really good question. I think a lot of times, contemporary art likes to question the state of being of how this world is right now. Sometimes that came out as very attention-seeking. Sometimes that came out as very aggressive to me. Some of them. I'm not saying all of them are. I'm just saying that's my personal reaction to some of them. However, I think that's not my nature. What I really want people to get out of my artwork is to feel a sense of emotional resonance. I always consider myself as more of an observant to this world than anything else. And again, like going back to my childhood memory, how do you find peace within changes? How do you offer that sense of peace to others? It's something that I think I'm trying to find in my artwork, or trying to offer in my artwork. Thank you so much again for inviting me to this conversation. If you want to check out my artwork, feel free to follow my Instagram. My Instagram account is taaye.art. If you want to subscribe to my email address, my website is taaye.art. I have a grip show coming up in Vancouver here, and I have several other exciting events going on. Hopefully, I get to do another. Hopefully, I'll get to do another online viewing again, where I could get to share, skill set with you guys. So see you. Thank you.